Keen's accusation that Stephen had run off and waited until the crisis was over before coming back was plausible. This was an opportunity to expose Stephen's lies and win Kim's favor. Kim had been waiting for an explanation, but he kept beating around the bush. "Stephen, you don't have to hold back. Tell me, and I will listen." Jasmine was also waiting expectantly for his explanation. Stephen hesitated. What was he supposed to say? If he told them that he was the commander-in-chief and that he had been given an urgent transfer order to lead his troops to the western border to engage in a life-or-death battle with Devil Hall, who would believe him? If he were in their shoes, even he would think it was a lie. "Cat got your tongue?" Keen asked. "You're hesitating because you're lying, right?" Stephen's expression darkened. "I'm not lying." "Don't tell me you're planning on using the excuse that you really were kidnapped and taken to a coal mine," Jasmine said. "No, but I was sent to the border to defend the country. The battle came so suddenly, and the operation was confidential, so I left without saying goodbye." "What's next?" Derek asked. "Are you going to tell us that you're actually the commander-in-chief, and that you came back after wiping out Devil Hall's army?" Stephen sighed in exasperation. "Yes, I was." Derek started laughing. "Who gave you the courage to pretend to be the commander?" Keen snorted. "Do you think we're stupid? Who would believe you? I doubt Kim would believe you either." "Stephen, you disappeared for more than half a year," Kim said quietly. "Do you really think that explanation is enough? Let's say you are a soldier and you were sent to the border. You could have sent me a message or anything before you left. I would have waited for you." "If you were going to lie, shouldn't you have come up with a more convincing one?" Jasmine retorted. "You've never shown any signs that you were a soldier. How are you expecting us to believe you? And as Kim said, you could have sent one last message or made one last call before leaving." "I know," Stephen said helplessly. "I'm sorry. I really am telling the truth." Keen couldn't take it anymore. He took Valeria from Stephen's arms. "You don't feel guilty at all. That's why you're lying with a straight face. Kim's daughter has nothing to do with you." "Why not? I'm her father." "Father? Do you even know what her name is?" Stephen said nothing because he really didn't know. Derek chimed in. "Her name is Valeria Cassidy. You should understand what this means, right?" Stephen pressed his lips together. How could he not understand? Kim had given their daughter the Cassidy family name. It was equivalent to cutting all ties with him. When Stephen first received the transfer order, he didn't know it would take more than half a year before he could come home. If he had sent Kim a message or made a call before leaving, there was a risk that he would have hesitated. But the commander-in-chief didn't have the luxury to hesitate. A moment of hesitation could cost his life or his comrade's life. He could only blame himself for being weak. More than half a year had passed since then, and everything had changed. His life and the people around were no longer the same. "When Valeria was born, you didn't send a single message or make a single call," Jasmine said. "Kim tried everything to look for you, but it was like you disappeared. At this point, don't you think it's reasonable for her to cut off ties with you?" Stephen was overwhelmed with guilt. "It is reasonable." A commotion came from outside the tea house. It was the Cassidy and Haynes families. "Where's Stephen?" Helen demanded. Valeria's caretaker had quietly called the Cassidy family and told them about the situation. When Helen heard that Stephen had dared to come back after abandoning his family, she rallied the two families and headed to the tea house aggressively. She was even angrier when she walked in and saw Stephen. "You shameless coward, showing up after all this time. Don't think I won't beat you to death." Derek stopped Helen when she raised her cane. "Please calm down. Think about your health. You shouldn't get worked up over a coward like him." Helen's anger dissipated by half when she saw the talented youth ranked third in Annapolis. "You're Derek Naylor, correct? You're as handsome as they say. You and Kim suit each other." "You flatter me, Miss Helen," Derek said modestly. "Stephen, are you seeing this?" Natalie called out from behind Helen. This is a man worthy of Kim. He's responsible and has a good family background. You're nothing compared to him. By now, you should already know that Kim was taken in by the Cassidy family in Annapolis, Kyle said. It's obvious that you came back to freeload again. There's no point in talking to a coward like him, Harry said. We're here to discuss Kim and Mr. Derek's marriage. Helen nodded. You're right. I almost forgot what we came here for. He chose this exact moment to come back. It's too much of a coincidence. Neither of our families acknowledge you as Kim's husband. With that, she turned around to face Derek and pretended like Stephen didn't exist. Mr. Derek, I'm the person with the highest seniority within the Cassidy family in Los Angeles. If you have any requests, feel free to let me know. The Naylor family couldn't match up to Keene's Cassidy family in Annapolis, but Derek was still from an imperial family. Moreover, he must be talented considering he was ranked 3rd in the city. He was the best partner for Kim. Helen wasn't the only one who had recognized Derek with a glance. He'd guessed her identity when she walked in while surrounded by a crowd. Derek politely returned her greeting. Helen was pleased with his manners. I've taken a fancy to Miss Kim, Derek said. I only have one request, and that is for her daughter to take on the Naylor family name. That's reasonable. Helen turned to Keene. What do you think? She had the highest seniority here, but in terms of family background, none of them could match up to Keene's family. She couldn't make the decision on her own. Keene gave her a smile. Since you've agreed, this'll be easy. Derek told me about his request before you came. I don't have any objections. Then it's settled, Helen said. Kim's daughter's name will be Victoria Naylor. Next, we should discuss the marriage between... Wait! Stephen interrupted. You can't change our daughter's name without asking me or Kim's permission. Ask for your opinion? Who do you think you are? Natalie snapped. Her name is Valeria Cassidy. She's a member of our family. She has no connection to you. Valeria's father has been absent since birth, Helen said. Don't think you can come out of nowhere and take on that role. Stephen's eyes narrowed. You're Kim's grandmother, so I've let a lot of things slide in the past. Don't make me take matters into my own hands. It hadn't been that long since he'd left the battlefield. An oppressive atmosphere filled the air from his aura. Keene and Derek glanced at each other. They both felt the tremendous pressure from Stephen's aura. Keene was slightly inferior to Johann, while Derek was ranked 3rd in Annapolis. Their abilities were not just for show. Were they imagining things? It was impossible for Stephen to be this skilled in martial arts. Why would he have run away right before the bet's deadline otherwise? Are you threatening me? Helen demanded. Stephen didn't back down. Think of it however you want. Just know that I won't agree to this. You have no right to get involved in our family's affairs, Keene said. Kim's daughter will take the Naylor family name, and that's final. Mr. Keene is the successor of the Cassidy family in Annapolis, Helen introduced. He's also Kim's older brother. He's qualified to decide her daughter's surname. The air turned frigid. Keene sensed a wave of murderous aura emanating from Stephen. Do you want to kill me? Then try it. I'll give you a chance. Stab me with that knife on the table. But if you don't have the courage... Keene released his own aura. Then you'll have to pay with your life. Seeing the two of them at each other's throats, Kim pulled out her phone. She was disappointed in Stephen, but the last thing she wanted was for him to die. Keene was short-tempered and skilled, even more so than Derek. If he and Stephen fought, one of them would end up dead. Kim quickly sent a message to Victoria. Mom, come to the tea house near the villa. Stephen's back and he's in danger. You're overestimating yourself, Stephen said. I don't need a knife to kill you. I only need one hand. Keene wasn't threatened in the slightest. What can you do with one hand? Slap me to death? Faster than he could react, Stephen struck. The wind whistled past Keene's ear, sharp enough to draw blood. Stop! Everyone in the tea house froze. They turned to the entrance. It was Victoria. Her arrival had saved Keen's life, although no one was aware of that. "Mom?" Stephen wasn't expecting Victoria to show up. He was planning on looking for her after talking things out with Kim. Victoria walked up to him and slapped him across the face. "Don't call me Mom. I don't have a son like you. Why did you come back after what you did?" Everyone was stunned, especially Helen and the rest of the Cassidy family. They couldn't believe that Victoria had slapped her own son in public. Stephen was taken aback, but he didn't say anything. "Tell me, why did you come back? Just when we thought you were dead, you decide to return? Do you know what shame is?" Victoria's heart clenched at her harsh criticisms. Under ordinary circumstances, she would have never raised her hand against her son, but the Cassidy family in Annapolis was ranked third in the country. Keen was far stronger than Stephen. When Victoria arrived at the tea house, they were one step away from exchanging blows. She didn't know how to fight. Getting between them was out of the question. She had an idea in a moment of desperation. If she pretended to scold Stephen, Keen and the others might let him go. Sure enough, Keen stood to the side with his hands on his hips, amused by the drama unfolding before him. "Mom, I didn't mean to make a scene, but they're trying to change my daughter's last name right in front of me. I can't agree to that." "This isn't your place to step in," Victoria chided. "Towards the end of Kim's pregnancy, where did you go? When she was giving birth, where were you? And on the day of the deadline for your bet with the Addams family, why didn't you show up? After disappearing for more than half a year, you suddenly come back and claim to be her daughter's father, but what right do you have to say that?" Keen nodded in approval. "You're reasonable, even though you're his mother. Before you came, Kim gave him a chance to explain, but he lied through his teeth instead." Kim held in her tears. "Stephen, I waited for you for more than half a year, not knowing if you were alive or dead. You know your explanation just now wasn't enough. Are you going to explain yourself properly? If not, then there's nothing more to say." Stephen's anxiety grew. "Wait, Kim, it's not that I don't want to explain myself, but with just my one-sided statement, it'll be hard to believe." "What are you trying to say?" "Come with me to Annapolis. I'll take you with me to the Addams family's residence. Then you'll understand my disappearance." Stephen had made up his mind. This time, no matter what, he had to settle the issue with the Addams family and prove that he was the commander-in-chief. Without evidence, it wouldn't matter how many times he revealed his identity. No one would believe him. "Why?" Kim asked. "Why do we need to go there?" "Because that's the only way to make you believe me." "I think you've lost it," Helen said. "It's been some time since the bet's deadline. The Addams family has forgotten about you. Why would you want to go there the minute you come back?" Natalie glowered at him. "If you want to die, then go by yourself. Don't drag Kim with you." Even the head of the Cassidy family in Annapolis, Yoram Cassidy, had to treat the Addams family with respect. "You don't have to be afraid of them. They're not enough to hurt me." Stephen turned back to Kim. "Trust me one more time. I promise that you'll understand if you come with me. At that time, if you're not satisfied with my explanation, then I'll leave and never show up in front of you again." Kim knew he was being sincere. There was something he couldn't tell her without evidence. What would be so hard to believe? She didn't want to give up on him like this without knowing the entire truth. She would give him one last chance, and only one. Before she could say anything, Helen interrupted her. "Kim, don't be fooled. He's always been a smooth talker, fluffing up his promises in flowery words. Don't forget how many times he's broken his promises. There's no reason to follow him to the Addams family's residence. What could he possibly have to show you?" "Kim, think about it carefully," Keen said. "Having the opportunity to meet Derek wasn't easy to come by. It's because of my father that he came all the way here from Annapolis. If you give Stephen another chance, that would be looking down on my father and wasting his efforts." Derek joined in. "Everyone, Can I give my input?" "Go ahead," Keen said. "Despite what he's done, he's still Kim's former husband. Maybe he really did have something important going on." Helen scoffed. "What difficulties could he possibly have?" "Miss Helen, please hear me out," Derek continued. "I disapprove of his actions, but I can't ignore his request to give him a chance and explain himself just because I'm interested in Miss Kim. I'm not someone who takes advantage of someone's predicament. Since he'll be visiting the Addams family, we might as well follow him and witness the truth with our own eyes. If he's telling the truth, we'll be ruining a beautiful marriage. If he's lying, then it's clear that he can't be trusted." The Cassidy and Haynes families agreed. His suggestion made sense. "All right, we'll do as you say," Keen said. "Everyone in Annapolis calls you a modest gentleman. After meeting you today, you're indeed worthy of that title." Derek smiled in response. It was next to impossible for the Addams family to let Stephen go after discovering he was alive. With Stephen out of the way, there would be no more obstacles between him and Kim. "Miss Kim, is it okay for me to make this decision?" "Yes, it's fine." Kim had already made up her mind to give Stephen a chance, regardless of what the Cassidy and Haynes families decided. "Since Kim has agreed and everyone has no objections, then this matter is decided," Keen announced. "Wait," Natalie said. "I have an additional condition." "What is it?" "Before we visit the Addams family, I want Stephen to promise that he won't harass Kim or her daughter." "Not to worry, I'll be bringing Kim and her daughter to my family in Annapolis. Our security is tight. Not just anyone can enter." Natalie was reassured. "Then I'll leave them in your care." Everyone dispersed after coming to an agreement. Kim packed her luggage and took Valeria with her to Annapolis with Keen. Derek went with them. In the meantime, Stephen was also preparing to set off for the big city. "Are you really going to Annapolis?" Victoria asked with concern. "I've been worrying about you for more than half a year. It wasn't easy for you to come back. Is it really a good idea to confront the Addams family?" "Mom, do you really want your granddaughter to take on a stranger's surname and call someone else her grandma? I'm not the only one who'll be going to the Addams family. You're coming with me." Victoria hadn't forgotten the way she and Kim had almost lost their lives when confronted with the Addams family some time ago. That was not a day she wanted to relive. "Why are you insisting on going?" "To settle the score. I told you I would make them regret everything they've done to you and me. This is our opportunity to make them repent." "But this is the Addams family we're talking about. Do you really want to risk everything for the sake of settling your grudge with them?" Stephen had disappeared for more than half a year. No one knew where he'd gone. Even if he'd somehow made tremendous progress, their opponent would be the family ranked first in the country. Their background was unfathomable. Stephen wouldn't be able to handle them alone. "Mom, just trust me. I promise I won't let you down." Victoria was conflicted, but Stephen was confident. Maybe he really did have a way to take them down. Either way, he'd made up his mind, and no one would be able to talk him out of it. Whatever the outcome would be, they would witness the ending together. "Okay, Stephen, we'll go together." While Victoria was packing, Stephen went to look for the 4 great generals. "Are you finally going to make your move?" Dennis asked in anticipation. "Yeah, it's time," Stephen replied. "A lot has changed since we went to the western border. I've been giving it some thought. We protect the country for the people, and we fight to the end with anyone who threatens our peace." "We're warriors of the battlefield," Roslyn added. "That's our duty." Stephen wasn't the only one being misunderstood. Many of his troops were in the same boat. Some secrets were meant to be kept hidden, even from their families and closest friends. It was common for misunderstandings to arise. While the sacrifice was worth it, would they regret it one day when their lives were irrevocably changed because of their decision? "Dennis, you should prepare to settle the score with the LeBlanc family," Stephen reminded him. Uncertainty flickered in Dennis's eyes. "Do you think I have what it takes?" he asked quietly. Why not? You're the leader of the 4 great generals. Are you intimidated by Dmitri because he's ranked first among the youths in Annapolis? Dennis hesitated. It's been 10 years since then. I don't know how strong he's gotten. It was rare for Dennis to hesitate. He was one of the most confident and determined people Stephen knew. Even if he's improved, his progress can't be compared to ours, Stephen said. We spent years on the battlefield with our lives on the line. If you ask me, he can't match up to the leader of the 4 great generals. Dennis isn't intimidated by Dmitri, Rosalind said. It's the past he can't let go of. I know. This is his chance to face his fears and move forward. Dennis took a deep breath. I understand. I'll confront the LeBlanc family in Annapolis and take back everything that once belonged to me. Stephen patted his shoulder with a smile. I believe in you. And remember, no matter what happens, you'll never be locked up again. When Kim, Keen, and Derek arrived in Annapolis, Keen invited Derek to visit their family, but he politely turned down the offer. A gentleman has his own ways of doing things. Before Stephen explains himself to Miss Kim, I'll put some distance between our families to prevent him from arguing that I was making a move while he wasn't here. When the truth is out, I'll personally pay a visit to your father. Keen was impressed with Derek's humble and gentlemanly attitude. He was a suitable partner for Kim. After Derek left, Keen and Kim went to the Cassidy family's residence to see Yoram. Kim exchanged a few pleasantries before heading to her room with Valeria, leaving them alone to talk. Yoram was furious when he heard about what had happened at the tea house. After abandoning his wife and family, he comes back and tries to be a father? Yoram had treated Kim like his own daughter ever since he became her adoptive father. He would not tolerate her runaway husband coming back and demanding to be a part of her life again. He specifically chose this time to come back, Keen said. The crisis is over, and he has nothing to worry about. Also, he disagreed with Kim's marriage with Derek and claimed that no one has the right to change his daughter's name. That's ridiculous. When Kim gave birth to her daughter, he wasn't by her side. When she challenged the Addams family on behalf of her no-show husband, he was still nowhere to be found. Now that things have calmed down, he shows up out of nowhere and claims to be her daughter's father. You should have taught that disgrace of a husband a lesson. I was about to, Keen protested. But his mother came and interrupted us. Derek was generous and didn't hold it against us. He agreed to give Stephen a chance to explain himself. What explanation could he possibly have? He's just like his father. Terrence is the head of the Addams family, but there's no one who doesn't know his dark history. He's not a good person. It's no surprise that his son is following in his footsteps. Well, it's not impossible for Stephen to redeem himself. If he can get the Addams family to acknowledge him, then he will be worthy of Kim. Keen thought about it. Maybe that's why he was so adamant about getting Kim to come with him to visit the Addams family. He kept saying she would understand if she went with him, but I couldn't figure out why. What is there to explain by risking his life? He might have some tricks up his sleeve. Since we're here in the city anyway, let's wait and see what tricks he'll try and pull out. At the Addams family's residence, Johann rushed into the study and reported to Terrence, who was practicing his calligraphy. There's news about Stephen. Terrence put down his brush. After all these months? What did you find out? He reappeared in Washington, D.C. and declared that he'd be paying us a visit. Why would he come here after knowing that he lost the bet? Johann also had his doubts. I don't know, but I've confirmed that Kim is currently staying with the Cassidy family in Annapolis, and Stephen is already on a flight here. Terrence frowned. Was he hiding for more than half a year to train? I don't think so. I heard that when he met up with Kim again, he was dressed in a worn-out uniform. I believe he's injured because he coughed up blood when Derek only lightly shoved him. His body is a wreck. Coming here would only result in his death. Maybe he wants to prove to Kim that he's not a coward. Or he's learned some kind of divine technique. Even if he did, judging from his current condition, it had serious side effects. A dark look passed over Terrence's face. Whatever the case may be, he wants to come, so there's no need to stop him. He got lucky during the bet's deadline, but this time we won't let him get away. Make an announcement immediately. If Stephen isn't satisfied with the results of our bet, then I'm willing to accept another challenge. Following the public announcement, news of Stephen's visit to Annapolis spread across the city. He and the Addams family once again became a hot topic in the upper-class circles. A coward had returned at the peak of his wife's career and after their daughter was born. The dramatic reversal was undoubtedly very exciting. After the bet drew to a close, Celeste had been spending more time at home. Like the others in the city, she was anticipating Stephen's arrival in Annapolis. Tian had also been staying at home. He rarely went outside. After coming back to Annapolis from Washington, D.C., the rest of the youths in the city criticized and mocked him for being ranked second. He didn't deserve that position when he lost to an illegitimate son like Stephen. Tian felt wronged, but he couldn't reveal Stephen's identity. And so, he stayed home and cut off contact with the public. He believed that his name would be cleared when Stephen confronted the Addams family during the bet's deadline, but to his dismay, Kim had taken this place instead. Tian no longer had the motivation to keep up with his daily training. What's more, he was distracted when he fought the youth ranked 20th, which led to his defeat. From then on, the youth took his spot as ranked second, while his own rank dropped to 20th place. He once again became the target of ridicule from the upper-class circles. Even the Val family was disappointed in Tian. They wondered if they should remove him from the successor position. Now that Stephen was coming back, Tian's motivation was renewed. Everyone in Annapolis would soon discover Stephen's true identity and regret mocking him for being an illegitimate son, just like he and Celeste had. The other upper-class families were anticipating an entertaining showdown between Stephen and the Addams family. Stephen, who'd been in hiding for more than half a year, had made a foolish decision to challenge the Addams family the second he returned. It was no different from sending himself to death's door. Stephen's disappearance had made him famous. His name became synonymous with cowardice. As for the man in question, Stephen wasn't aware that his trip to Annapolis would stir up a wave of heated discussion across the city. At this time, he and the four great generals were on a flight to Annapolis. Stephen was sitting by the window and looking outside at the city below the clouds. He hadn't been here since the end of the war 6 years ago, and before that was his time with the Addams family. The plane descended below the clouds, and the entire city came into view. It had been years since Stephen was kicked out of the Addams family. He had been waiting for this moment for a long time. It wouldn't be long now. Soon, their grudge would be settled once and for all. The four great generals were also looking forward to their arrival. Especially Dennis. This would be his first real visit to Annapolis after 10 years. He was filled with determination after Stephen's encouragement. Mr. Addams, we're about to land. I'll head to the LeBlanc family after you settle things with the Addams. No, let's go to the LeBlanc family first. It's been 10 years. I'm sure you're itching to get back at them for what they did to you. Dennis didn't have the words to express his gratitude. Frankly, the issue with the Addams family was much more urgent. Stephen and his relationship with Kim were on the line, but he was prioritizing his friend over his own problems. At the airport, 5 people were waiting for Stephen's plane to land. It was Kylan and his 4 students. He had heard that Stephen would be coming to Annapolis, so he came to wait for him. Kylan had never agreed with Stephen becoming the commander-in-chief. He had been looking for opportunities to fight with him for the position, but every time, for various reasons, something got in the way. The plane landed, and Stephen and the 4 great generals made their way down the spiral staircase. They spotted Kylan and his 4 students from afar. Their conspicuous attire was hard to miss. General Kylan, it's been a long time, Stephen said, walking over. It has indeed, Commander Addams. While Kylan didn't approve of Stephen being the commander-in-chief, he was in a high position. He had to use formalities. You've taken down Devil Hall twice. That makes you worthy of being my opponent. You haven't changed after all these years, Stephen said with a chuckle. Then his smile dropped, and his expression turned serious. Everyone watched in surprise as Stephen straightened and lowered his head. Thank you for protecting my family while I was away. The four great generals were moved by Stephen's actions. No one in the world could make the commander-in-chief lower his head in sincerity. But Kylan was someone who deserved it. If he hadn't been protecting Stephen's family during the bloody battle with Devil Hall, there was no guarantee that they would still be here when Stephen returned. I won't forget what you did for me, Stephen said sincerely. I'll remember this debt of gratitude. I'll definitely repay you in the future. Kylan nodded. You do owe me a favor, but I'm not one to wait around for this future you speak of. Since you're here, why don't you repay me now? Stephen raised his head in surprise. How do you want me to repay you? It's simple. Kylan unsheathed his sword. The blade shone under the dazzling sunlight. I want to have a duel. He'd been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. 6 years ago, the two of them had fought side by side on the battlefield. After the war ended, Stephen was awarded the title of Commander-in-Chief, while Kylan was given a rank that was one tier below. Kylan had been dissatisfied with how things turned out, so he went to find Stephen many times to ask him for a duel. He believed he wasn't inferior to him. However, Stephen was indifferent to fame and fortune and didn't care about their positions. He'd refused every time. Stephen wasn't afraid, but to him, it was meaningless to decide the ownership of the honor of the country through a duel. It was only when Kylan was transferred to Annapolis and rarely appeared in public that he finally had some peace and quiet. To me, there's no difference between our positions, Stephen said. I owe you a favor, so why don't I give you the title of Commander-in-Chief? Consider it as me paying you back for protecting my family. Fury blazed in Kylan's eyes. Commander Adams, are you looking down on me? Am I that pathetic to you? Do you think I need to rely on you to become the Commander-in-Chief? Stephen didn't think it would be easy, but he didn't expect such a big reaction. That's not what I meant. I'm not saying you're weak. I just appreciate what you did for me, and I have no way of repaying you. So the only thing I can do is... Kylan held up a hand. Stop. Commander Adams, listen carefully. I don't need your appreciation, and I don't care if you pay me back or not. The only thing I want is to have a duel and prove that I'm stronger than you. Do you agree or not? The four great generals anticipated Stephen's response. He'd never taken Kylan up on his challenge, and they were curious as to who was stronger between the two of them. They had never fought before, so the answer remained a mystery. According to past records, Kylan wasn't inferior to Stephen. However, it was publicly acknowledged that the commander-in-chief was a strategist, and almost no one could match up to him in that department. But when it came to individual combat strength, it could go either way. There were some who thought that the commander-in-chief was the strongest, while there were others who thought General Kylan was stronger. The safe answer was that they were evenly matched in terms of individual strength. Kylan's four students were also anticipating Stephen's reply. Who was stronger? Their teacher or Commander Adams? Stephen considered his options before making a decision. All right, think of it as me repaying you for your kindness. I accept your duel. Kylan's usual solemn expression cracked. There was a rare hint of a smile. Good answer. Our duel won't be as simple as victor and loser. If I lose, all my subordinates and I will listen to you without question. Okay, if I lose, the position of the commander-in-chief will be yours. Stephen paused before continuing. You are waiting on me, so I assume you're aware that I have something important to take care of. I agreed to your duel, but it will have to be delayed until after I settle my personal affairs. Do you have any objection to that? No, you can take care of whatever you need to. Then it's settled. Stephen and Kylan had reached an agreement. The four great generals and Kylan's students were looking forward to the duel between the two strongest people in the United States. The stakes were high, and their future was on the line. Kylan took a deep breath as he watched Stephen and the 4 great generals leave the airport. His students had never seen him so nervous before. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine. I'm just looking forward to it. We'll finally know which one of us is stronger." "Is Commander Adams really that much stronger than you?" Kylan gave him a thoughtful look. "To put it simply, he and I both have a 50% chance of winning." On the battlefield, Kylan thoroughly annihilated the enemy because one person would be enough to build another army. The officials of the country didn't approve of his methods, so they hadn't allowed him to participate in another battle since the war 6 years ago. But this wasn't important to his students. To them, their teacher was invincible. He deserved the title of Commander-in-Chief, not Stephen. They knew that Kylan had been thinking the same thing all these years. He was strong, and he never feared his opponents, no matter who they were. That was why it was strange for him to be so cautious when facing Stephen. The fact that Kylan was taking this battle so seriously proved how strong Stephen was. Kylan noticed the looks on their faces. "Why are you so nervous? Life and death are determined by fate. Anything can happen. I may only have a 50% chance of winning, but that doesn't mean that I won't be the winner." His students were relieved to hear that. Their teacher had returned to his normal, confident self. But what they didn't know is that Kylan wasn't as confident as he sounded. Johann received news of the duel between the Commander-in-Chief and General Kylan. He rushed to find Terrence. "Dad, the Commander-in-Chief is in Annapolis." Terrence paused in the middle of his calligraphy. "Is that so? This is a good opportunity for us." When he and Johann went to Washington, D.C. last time, they were only minutes away from meeting the commander. He had been waiting for another opportunity since then. That's not the main point. They say General Kylan went to the airport to meet the Commander-in-Chief and request a duel. The commander agreed to it. That piqued Terrence's interest. "I heard General Kylan has been requesting a duel for the past few years, but the commander has never accepted. Why the change of heart?" "Who knows? But this will be a decisive battle between the 2 strongest people in the country. They say that if the Commander-in-Chief wins, General Kylan and his subordinates will submit to him completely. And if the commander loses, he'll give up his position." "The stakes are surprisingly high," Terrence said. "General Kylan is risking a lot in order to prove that he's stronger than the commander. The outcome will shock the world, regardless of who wins or loses. This is a battle that concerns the fate of our country." That wasn't an exaggeration. If the Commander-in-Chief won, he would accept General Kylan and his forces. It would be like giving wings to a tiger. The country's defense would be stronger than ever. It would be practically impossible for enemies to invade. If the Commander-in-Chief lost, General Kylan would take over his position, but that would make their enemies less wary. To the world beyond the ocean, the current commander was much more difficult to deal with than General Kylan. That was exactly what Silas was thinking. "I have good news," he announced to the Alliance in the conference room. "General Kylan Gale has successfully challenged the Commander-in-Chief to a duel. The 2 strongest people in the United States will have a groundbreaking battle." A heated discussion broke out. Who would have thought that they would have a showdown? "It's a shame that we won't be able to see it for ourselves. If I witnessed such a great battle with my own eyes, I could die with no regrets." "Who do you think will win?" Silas knocked on the table to get their attention. "That's besides the point. I brought this up for a reason. General Kylan has to be the winner. If he wins, he'll take over the position of the Commander-in-Chief. He is strong, but he's not up to par with the current commander in other aspects." The Alliance nodded in agreement. "We understand that, but how can we guarantee General Kylan's victory?" Silas flashed a cryptic smile. "Good question. Have you all forgotten about Devil Hall already?" News of the duel between General Kylan and the Commander-in-Chief spread across the country. Not too many people knew who Kylan was because he rarely appeared in public after the war 6 years ago. Several media outlets dug up all the information they could find on him. General Kylan's popularity soared. His personal information had a confidentiality level of one tier below the commander-in-chief. Ordinary people wouldn't come across it, but his valiant performance in the army wasn't a secret, including his ruthless methods. The public started calling Kylan the god of hell. There were rumors that he was a devil who killed without blinking an eye, and that he ate human flesh for 3 meals a day. He became a symbol of fear. If a child was disobedient, their parents would tell them to behave unless they wanted General Kylan to come for them. Kylan's nefarious image became deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. Rumors intensified and became more exaggerated as the days passed. Some of them were quite detailed, as if the people had seen Kylan with their own eyes. The rumors spread to the Cassidy family in Annapolis. Kim was passing by the living room with Yoram and Keen when she happened to overhear 2 maids talking about General Kylan. After the bet with the Addams family concluded, Kim found out that her mysterious savior was actually General Kylan. He was cold to her and Victoria, but he didn't seem as ruthless and heartless as the rumors made him out to be. They say he's obsessed with martial arts. For the sake of defeating an opponent, he would train in seclusion for years. He's savage and emotionless. He wouldn't bat an eye if someone unrelated to him died right in front of him. He's not that cruel, Kim said, joining the conversation. As the head of the Cassidy family, Yoram knew much more about General Kylan than ordinary people. He'd been curious about him ever since he saved Kim and Victoria. I've been wondering, why did he save you? I've thought about it, Keen said. I heard that Kim and Aunt Victoria were almost killed by the Addams family, but General Kylan appeared and stood up for them. They're ranked first in the country, but it's strange for General Kylan to be so interested in their bet with an illegitimate son. If you think about it logically, a bet of this level isn't enough to attract his attention. There's only one possibility, Yoram said. Someone asked General Kylan to protect Kim and Victoria. Although, I don't know who would ask him to do something like that. Kim considered their theories. If Kylan really had been protecting her and Victoria, who would make that kind of request? Could it be Stephen? He'd disappeared for more than half a year, and in the past he'd always protected the people he cared about in his own way. It wasn't impossible for him to have requested Kylan to protect them while he was gone. But Stephen was an ordinary person, and Kylan was out of reach for people like them. When Stephen was on his way to the city with the 4 great generals, he received a call from Lionel. I heard you're in Annapolis. Stephen was surprised by his immaculate timing. Yeah, I just arrived. Aren't you a little too well-informed? Lionel laughed. It's not that I'm too well-informed. Your duel with General Kylan is spread across the city. Oh, I didn't think that news would get out so quickly. Anyway, I'll be dropping by your place for a visit. It's been a while since we last saw each other. All right, I'll bring out the drinks and wait for you. Mr. Addams, I won't be coming with you, Dennis said after Stephen ended the call. I should check out the LeBlanc family before confronting them tomorrow. That's a good idea. Surprise them and see how they react. The LeBlanc family had abandoned Dennis without hesitation 10 years ago, but they were his family. Although unlikely, there was a chance that they may have had a change of heart. Stephen, Rosalind, Zachary, and Jaden headed to Lionel's place, while Dennis went to the LeBlanc family's residence. It had been years since he last walked down this path, and many things had changed. Even then, he knew when to turn and when to go straight. It was as if the way back to what was once his home was ingrained in his memory. The entrance to the LeBlanc family's residence was as extravagant as he remembered. The 2 stone lions on both sides of the gate were as magnificent as they used to be. Dennis looked up. The same plaque with the name LeBlanc that he'd once grown tired of passing by every day stared back in all its glory. The past replayed like a movie. 10 years ago, he'd gotten drunk on his wedding night. When he woke up and went to the room prepared for the bride and groom, he saw his wife making love with his cousin, Dimitri LeBlanc. In a fit of rage, he and Dimitri had gotten into a huge fight. In the end, Dimitri gathered the family and accused him of killing his wife. The family sent him to prison for an unwarranted crime, where he would stay for the next few years. In the beginning, he had a sliver of hope that maybe his family would discover the truth and let him out. But as the monotonous days of staring blankly at the dreary prison wall droned on, any hope he had of getting out was extinguished. The days passed, then weeks, and finally a year. No one from the LeBlanc family had come to visit him. That was when he started to believe that this cold, small space would be his home for the rest of his life. The past flashed before Dennis's eyes. The events of 10 years ago seemed to have happened just yesterday. After he was sent to prison, Dmitri took first place in the rankings and maintained his rank ever since. Tien Val, who was ranked second, had challenged Dmitri more than once, but he lost every time. There was a rumor among the upper-class circles that Dmitri was so strong that he outclassed everyone on the rankings. Perhaps he could be compared to Johan, the strongest youth in Annapolis. Because they'd never competed with one another, no one knew who was stronger. But one thing was certain. Dmitri was much stronger than he was 10 years ago. Dennis opened the gate and knocked on the door of the LeBlanc family's residence. There was no response. Just as he was about to knock again, the door opened a crack, and a man poked his head out. He looked annoyed. "Where did you come from? Why are you knocking so loudly? Not just anyone can come here. Get lost." It was already 7 o'clock in the evening. The LeBlanc family had finished their meal and went back to their rooms. The mansion staff could finally relax and take it easy. While they were having dinner, a loud knock sounded from the door. The staff who had begrudgingly left the table was annoyed by the disturbance. Just as he was about to close the door, Dennis grabbed the handle and stopped him. "Take a good look. Do you remember me?" The staff stared up at him in confusion. Then his eyes widened. He had been working for the LeBlanc family for more than 10 years. He knew every member's face by heart. He ran inside and shouted for the LeBlanc family to come downstairs. The once quiet mansion bustled with activity as everyone left their rooms and headed to the courtyard. Upon seeing the familiar faces, Dennis pushed open the door and entered. The head of the LeBlanc family, Tavin LeBlanc, walked up to him and gave him a once-over. "It really is you. How are you here? Your sentence was 20 years. Dennis's parents looked nervous. "We should investigate how he got out of prison. If he really did escape, it'll be bad for our family's reputation." Another voice sounded from the crowd. "We have to investigate thoroughly. If he escaped, we should send him back. We can't let him ruin our image." Dennis looked over. It was Dmitri, and the woman next to him was his wife from 10 years ago, Nadia. She was snuggling in Dmitri's arms. They looked like a loving couple. During Dennis's time in prison, he'd seen Dmitri and Nadia only once. Dmitri had been there to challenge him to a fight, which he lost, and Nadia had been there to ridicule him. Dennis remembered being shocked that his supposedly dead wife, Nadia, was still alive. He was there when Dmitri stabbed her on their wedding night. The fact that she was alive and in a relationship with Dmitri was proof that the two of them had planned that night 10 years ago. Surprised, Dmitri was smug as he hugged Nadia tighter. "She's my woman now." Dennis glanced at their proximity in disdain. "I should have seen this coming. I didn't escape from prison." "Whether you escaped or not, we'll know after we investigate," Dmitri said with a sneer. Tavin had already sent his subordinate to investigate. Soon, he returned and reported that Dennis had been released from prison, but there was no information as to when or what he'd been up to after being released. "So you really didn't escape. Looks like you were a model prisoner," Dmitri mocked. "It doesn't matter how well behaved he was," Nadia said. "He still has a criminal record. Look at him. He came barging into our home at this time of night. He's like a ruffian now. I think he came back because he wants us to take him in. After all, aside from the LeBlanc family, where else can he go?" Nadia wasn't impressed with Dennis after all these years. In the past, he'd dressed head to toe in designer clothes, but now he didn't look any different from an ordinary passerby. "You want to come back to us after being locked up for 10 years? Dmitri's father asked in disapproval. "There's no place for a criminal in our family." Dimitri's mother agreed. We became the leader of the royal families in Annapolis because of our son. We can't let a criminal come back and ruin his hard work. Dimitri had been ranked first among the younger generation for the past 10 years. No one had been able to dethrone him. Rumors spread in the city that the LeBlanc family had become the leader of the royal families in the city. Dimitri's parents had always been proud of him. Because of their son's position, their status gradually rose, and they gained control of the family. The head of the LeBlanc family, Tavin LeBlanc, was more like a mascot and a figurehead. Tavin agreed with Dimitri's parents. That's what I was thinking as well. Letting a criminal like him back into the family will stain our reputation. He looked at Dennis's parents. What do you two think? Everyone in the family was of one mind. Dennis's parents couldn't refute it. They could only nod in agreement. Dennis clenched his fist. So I'm that pathetic in your eyes. I came back not to join you again, but to make you regret what you did to me. Dimitri laughed. You want to make us regret it? Did you lose your mind after being in prison for 10 years? You're not that capable. Several members of the family snickered. Dennis was indifferent to their mockery. That's not the only thing. I'll be taking back everything that belongs to me. Before coming to Annapolis, he wasn't sure how this long overdue reunion would turn out. But now that he was here, the once oppressive and formidable LeBlanc family didn't seem that powerful anymore. It had been 10 long years, and he was no longer the powerless teenager he used to be. Dimitri's smile widened. Sounds like you haven't learned anything from your time in prison. What do you want to take back? Your position as the successor? He pulled Nadia closer to him. And your former wife, Nadia? Or do you want me to pay you back for the years you spent in prison? Nadia rested her head on Dimitri's shoulder. I think you're in over your head. Do you really think you can defeat Dimitri? Even if you trained for another 10 years, you would never be able to surpass him. The rest of the family echoed her words. Nadia laughed. Dion, no matter how you look at it, you have no chance of winning. I advise you to give up. I told you back then that only the strong are worthy of being my partner. Dimitri is the only one for me. Dennis's real name was Dion LeBlanc. It was a name he'd long since abandoned. He remembered the first time he met Nadia all those years ago. She told him that she loved him and would stay by his side forever. But it turned out that she'd hooked up with Dimitri even before their marriage. Looking back, I must have been blind to have fallen in love with a woman like you. That proves how incompetent you are, Nadia said. Look at yourself. Do you really think you're qualified to become a part of our family again? Dimitri's father nodded. She's right. Someone like him will ruin our family if we let him in. He even disrespected the successor and his wife. You should get out of here before we call security. Dennis glanced at him. You want me to leave? Did you forget about the head of the family? Since when do you give orders? He looked at Tavin. Do you have anything to say, Grandpa? I agree with your second uncle's opinion. Someone like you with a stain on your record cannot be affiliated with our family again. Of course, if you agree to leave quietly, we won't make things difficult for you. How about this? I'll compensate you with a sum that will be enough to support you for the rest of your life. All you have to do is disappear and never come back. Dennis let out a laugh. Did you think I came here to ask for money? From the way you're dressed, it's clear that you haven't been able to adapt to the outside world after being released from prison. I'm the only one who can help you live a normal life. Dennis didn't respond. Instead, he turned to his parents. Mom, Dad, what do you think? They hesitated before finally saying, We agree with your grandfather. Dennis could tell that their status was next to nothing in the family. They couldn't even say a single word in their son's defense. No one has any objections, so this matter is settled, Tavin announced. From today onward, Dion LeBlanc is no longer a member of our family. He wrote a check and handed it to Dennis. Here's $1 million. With your current living standards, it should be enough for you to live in comfort for the rest of your life. Take this and leave. Dennis stared at the check for a moment before taking it. I understand. I'll leave, but remember this. Tomorrow at 8 o'clock sharp in the morning, I'll come back and ruin the LeBlanc family. I'll make all of you understand the meaning of regret." He tore the check and threw the pieces into the air. A shower of paper rained down on the crowd as Dennis turned around and left the courtyard. His main reason for visiting tonight was to test them. He wondered what their reaction would be to a relative they had left to rot in prison for a crime he never committed. Now, he had seen the truth with his own eyes. To them, he was a sinner, and he always would be. Their opinion wouldn't change, even though they had to have known by now that the incident 10 years ago was a scheme that Dmitri had devised. Dmitri had been at the top for the past 10 years, and the family thought of him as the sole reason their status was elevated so quickly. Sacrificing one of their members was no big deal. Even the head of the family didn't hesitate to throw him away. Tavin frowned as he watched Dennis walk out of the courtyard. That was $1 million he'd just given up. The rest of the family scorned his actions. Ripping the check was just him putting on an act. They didn't take his threat to heart. Dmitri alone could defeat Dennis with a wave of his hand. Dr. Lionel Sloan was famed for being a national treasure, and it was not an exaggeration. His medical skills were excellent, and he had a great reputation. His name spread far and wide across the ocean. He was known as a benevolent doctor who had saved countless lives. He'd once received a medal from the Supreme Leader because of his outstanding contributions. To honor his achievements, the country awarded him a villa in Annapolis that was worth $10 million. Lionel, who was obsessed with the medical field, had transformed the villa into an academic research institute. It provided a place for his peers to research and learn from each other. Often, many scholars and experts would visit and discuss their difficulties with him. He was knowledgeable and held a lofty position that was highly sought after by others in the field. Once, when Lionel was at a car exhibition and showed interest in a Mercedes-Benz S-Class, someone slandered him and criticized him for being a fake academic who used his fame and wealth to indulge in a luxurious life. The person who posted the thread was immediately rebuked by the community. Many people agreed that they wouldn't have any objections even if Lionel were to drive the most expensive car in the world. Lionel was someone who Stephen held much respect for. When Stephen, Rosalind, Zachary, and Jaden came, the villa was bustling with guests and researchers. Lionel had been looking forward to their arrival. He clapped his hands to get everyone's attention. "Everyone, stop what you're doing. I would like to introduce you all to my friend." They put down the books in their hands and gave them their undivided attention. Lionel's friend must be as extraordinary as he was. Lionel extended his hand to Stephen. "I'm sure you've all heard of him. This is the Commander-in-Chief, Stephen Adams." No one was expecting that. They were expecting someone incredible, but they didn't think the commander would be here in person. An elderly scholar wearing black-rimmed glasses squeezed into the front of the crowd. "Mr. Adams, it's nice to meet you. I didn't know you were so young. My 9-year-old grandson admires you very much." Stephen laughed. "You and everyone else here are just like Dr. Sloan, an academic giant in the medical field. In that regard, all of you are my role models. You've worked hard to research and develop our country's medical technology. I'm here to thank you on behalf of the people." Everyone was pleasantly surprised that the Commander-in-Chief, who was respected throughout the country, was so humble and approachable. "You have a good eye, Mr. Adams," Lionel said with a laugh. "They're the talents of the medical field. Let me introduce you." Besides them, Stephen noticed other guests walking around. "The international gathering of medical experts will be held in Annapolis soon," Lionel explained. "I've invited families with a background in ancient medicine. The effect is gradual, but the illness can be cured. It has been passed down for thousands of years in our country, but it was limited to certain opportunities. This is a great opportunity to promote our techniques and technology to benefit the people." "I see. I've heard of ancient medicine. It's extremely valuable." The families with the background in ancient medicine hadn't expected the Commander-in-Chief to be so interested. They pulled him aside and gave him a brief lesson, which deepened his understanding of what he already knew. Back then, The priest saved him with ancient medicine and taught him many techniques. If it weren't for him, the commander-in-chief wouldn't have existed today. As everyone went back to their research, Lionel pulled Stephen to the stairs. "I've got a surprise for you. Follow me." There was a study on the second floor. Through the glass, Stephen saw a familiar face whom he hadn't seen in a long time. It was Amy. "You didn't expect to see your sister-in-law here, right? Amy's grades at Annapolis University are outstanding. I've taken her on as my student." "Yeah, I really didn't expect this. I'm glad she's found a profession she's passionate about." Lionel smiled. "She's talented and hardworking. In the future, her achievements in the medical field could be compared to mine. I know you haven't seen each other in a while. Want to go in and say hello?" "No, she looks busy. I'll see her next time. Give her my new phone number when you get a chance. Let's have a few drinks. After that, I should get going. I have a lot to prepare." Lionel gave him a meaningful look. "As your elder, I'll give you some words of wisdom. Let nature take its course. If you're meant to be together, then one way or another, you two will find your way back to each other." Stephen mulled over his words. "I'll keep that in mind." Stephen had extraordinary achievements under his belt given his young age. No one in the country could be compared to him. If he revealed his identity, the list of his admirers would go on with no end in sight. But the only woman who would ever be in his heart was Kim. By the time Stephen, Rosalind, Zachary, and Jaden got back to the hotel, it was already 10 o'clock at night. Dennis returned at the same time. From the look on Dennis's face, Stephen could guess what had gone down at the LeBlanc family. "Mr. Adams, I've made my decision," Dennis said. "Tomorrow morning, I'll confront the LeBlanc family and make them regret what they've done." 10 long years had passed, but no one from the LeBlanc family had thought of him even once. They had thrown him away all those years ago and never looked back. The same was true about his parents. Stephen patted his shoulder. "No matter what decision you make, we'll support you. We'll come with you tomorrow and turn the LeBlanc family upside down." Rosalind, Zachary, and Jaden nodded. "Do what you have to do. We'll be right behind you." Dennis was touched. Stephen, Rosalind, Zachary, and Jaden were like the family he'd never had. Bright and early the next morning, Dennis waited for the 4 of them at the door. He'd been waiting for this moment for much too long. As the leader of the royal families in Annapolis, the LeBlanc family had a strict morning routine. They had to gather in the dining hall for a simple breakfast. Tavin sat at the head of the table with his breakfast untouched. Because the head of the family hadn't started eating, the rest of them couldn't pick up their forks either. The atmosphere was tense because of Dion's appearance yesterday. They didn't think too much of his threat, but a criminal was capable of anything. Dion had told them that he would be coming at 8 o'clock sharp this morning to bring ruin to their family. It was obvious that Tavin was in a bad mood. The dining hall was silent. No one dared to make a sound. Dimitri was the one who broke the silence. "It's already 7:55. There's only 5 more minutes left." "I don't think he'll be coming," Tavin said. "He talked big yesterday, but I know better than anyone what kind of person he was 10 years ago. He's too compassionate for his own good. He wouldn't break in here and cause a commotion." Nadia chimed in. "He's just a criminal who was recently released from prison. The first thing he did after being locked up for 10 years was come here and threaten our family. He's no match for us, especially not Dimitri." Her voice was charming, and she had a way with words. This was the main reason Dimitri had fallen for her, along with her graceful demeanor. In reality, Nadia was not as graceful as she seemed. She had many intimate relationships before she married Dion. With her experience, it didn't take long for her to capture Dimitri's heart. Considering how talented Dimitri was, it was expected for his partner to be anything but ordinary. Dimitri scoffed. "Dion's no match for me. A criminal who's been locked up for 10 years would have little to no progress. He wants to ruin our family? What a joke!" Tavin finally picked up his fork. "You're right. Let's stop dwelling on it and eat." Just as the family was about to dig in, 8 o'clock arrived. A loud bang sounded from the entrance, followed by the sound of a door being flung open. Dion's voice could be heard from outside the mansion. "Where's Dimitri? If you come out and plead, I'll spare you." Tavin's fork fell onto the table. "It's Dion. He really came." The rest of the family was just as surprised. They were just discussing how he was all bark and no bite, but there he was, waiting at the gate. Dimitri scanned the shocked looks on their faces. "Why are you all so nervous? He's just a criminal. What's there to be afraid of? I'll take care of him." He stood up and headed for the door. Tavin followed him. The head of the family and Dimitri had left, so the rest of the family was in no mood for breakfast anymore. They followed them out. Dennis stood in front of the gate with his arms crossed as the LeBlanc family came out to the courtyard. A broken door was on the ground next to him, and Stephen, Rosalind, Zachary, and Jaden were standing behind him. "You really came, Dion," Dimitri sneered as he looked past Dennis. "And you've even brought along some helpers. Did you bring them as a backup because you knew you couldn't take us down by yourself? They look weak and scrawny, just like you. Are the four of you here to die?" Nadia's contemptuous gaze swept over them. "I don't know what I was thinking when I liked you back then. I'm glad our marriage didn't work out. Dimitri is a much better partner." "It doesn't seem like your taste in men has improved," Dennis said. "You're still just as superficial as you used to be. You're ignorant of talent even when it's right in front of you." Nadia laughed. "Talent? You must have really lost it after being in prison for 10 years. The 5 of you are worse than beggars." "Nadia, it's a waste of time to talk to him," Dimitri said. "Dion, you were once a member of the LeBlanc family, so I'll give you one more chance. Leave and I'll pretend you were never here." "I'll also give you a chance, Dimitri. If you plead and admit your crimes, I'll spare you." "You've gone crazy," Tavin said. "Did you learn this behavior from your life in prison?" Dimitri snorted. "Grandpa, there's no need to waste your words on him. Making a scene in our courtyard has its consequences." Dennis beckoned him with a hand. "Then come at me. Today will be your last." Several members of the family laughed as if they'd just heard a funny joke. Dimitri had been ranked first among the youths for the past 10 years. No one on the rankings was qualified to be his opponent. Not to mention, he'd defeated Dion 10 years ago, and he had only grown stronger since then. "The one who will die is you." Dimitri's figure blurred, and in an instant, he was in front of Dennis. Dimitri's speed was worthy of praise. If his opponent was ordinary, he wouldn't have been able to see a move at all. But Dennis, who had experienced hundreds of battles on the battlefield, saw his movements in slow motion. When Dimitri swung his fist, Dennis casually tilted his head to the side and dodged. He hadn't taken a single step from his original position. Dennis's reaction was so fast that even Dimitri was surprised. "Looks like you've improved, even though you spent the past 10 years rotting in prison. But that was just a warm-up." Dimitri launched another attack. "Too slow," Dennis mocked, dodging once again. "It's been 10 years, but you haven't improved at all." "Damn it," Dimitri cursed. He flexed his hand, increasing his strength. He would punch the living daylights out of him and make him regret coming here today. But what he imagined played out differently in reality. This time, Dennis didn't dodge. He took his attack head on. Dimitri had packed his punch with all the strength he could muster and slammed his fist against Dennis's chest. But the recoil numbed his arm. He felt like he'd hit an iron wall. Dimitri examined the area where he'd struck, but aside from the slightly crumpled fabric of Dennis's shirt, there was no sign of injury. "Is that all you've got?" Dennis provoked. Dimitri gritted his teeth. He couldn't care less about the numbness in his arm. He gathered all his strength in his fist again and swung. "You're too weak." Dennis grabbed his hand and shoved him back, snapping his wrist in the process. Dimitri tripped over his feet and fell over. He groaned as he clutched his injured wrist. The entire family was dumbfounded. There were rumors that Dmitri was only slightly weaker than Johann, but not only had he been able to gain the upper hand against Dion, he didn't even have the strength to fight back. Dmitri had defeated him in an instant back then. What exactly had happened to Dion for the past 10 years? How is it possible for him to take Dmitri down so easily? There was a solemn expression on Tavin's face. The color drained from Nadia's face. No one in the LeBlanc family dared to look Dion in the eye. Dmitri was in disbelief. "Tell me, how is this possible? I have to know, even if I die." "If you want to know so badly, then I'll tell you," Dennis said. "To be honest, I wasn't in prison for the past 10 years. The second year after I was locked up, I was selected to join the army and defend the border. My experiences on the battlefield are beyond what you could ever imagine." "Just what is your identity?" Nadia asked eagerly. The moment Dimitri's wrist was broken, she knew that Dion wasn't an ordinary person. Dennis glanced at Nadia before facing the family. "I'm the leader of the 4 great generals, Dennis Lucero." The LeBlanc family had varying reactions, but none of them doubted him after his performance just now. If Johann were Dimitri's opponent, there was no guarantee that he'd be able to defeat him in one move. But Dennis had done it, and he'd made it look easy. Dennis gestured to his companions. "Remember these people who you looked down on when you first saw them, Nadia? Their identities are beyond your imagination. This is Roslyn, Zachary, and Jaden. They're part of the 4 great generals like me." Tavin's expression changed drastically. If Dion and those 3 were the 4 great generals, then... His gaze fell on the young man standing off to the side. "What you're thinking is correct," Dennis said. "The man Nadia accused of being no different from a beggar is the commander-in-chief." Tavin was in disbelief as he took in the presence of the commander-in-chief. 6 years ago, the commander had appeared out of nowhere, and with his strength alone, he formed the 4 great generals and saved the country from the Alliance. Tavin had always used the commander-in-chief as an example when he taught the younger generation of the LeBlanc family. He was a symbol of ambition and aspiration. But now, they had become the enemy of the commander and the 4 great generals. This thought filled Tavin with rage. He whirled around and glowered at Nadia. "This is all because of you." If Nadia hadn't schemed with Dmitri, Dion wouldn't have been sent to prison, and the leader of the 4 great generals would have become the head of the LeBlanc family. All the upper-class families in Annapolis would have had to treat them with respect, including the Adams family. Nadia couldn't care less about Tavin. She hurried over to Dennis and lowered her head. "Dion, I shouldn't have abandoned you back then. After all these years, I haven't been able to let you go. I dream of you every night. You're the one I love. Let's let bygones be bygones. I'll devote myself to you wholeheartedly." Dennis felt nauseous. While Nadia was in bed with Dmitri every night, she was thinking of him. "You have no shame." Nadia grabbed his arm. "You can think of me as a shameless woman if you want. I don't mind as long as you're happy." Dennis shook her off in disgust. "Dion, as the head of the LeBlanc family, I welcome you back, and I hereby announce that you will be the successor." Tavin trailed off and changed his words. "No, you will be the head of the family, Dion. It's because I misjudged you back then that you suffered for the past 10 years. Come back to us. I'll compensate you for everything." Dennis's parents mimicked Tavin's attitude. "Dion, for the past 10 years, your mother and I have missed you dearly. We shouldn't have abandoned you when times were hard." Dimitri's parents joined in. "We're sorry for letting you down, Dion. We admit our mistakes." Dmitri watched quietly from the ground. Even if Dennis spared him today, he would no longer have any status within the family. Ranking first among the youths in the city was impressive, but it paled in comparison to the 4 great generals. And Dennis had taken him down in one move in front of the entire family. It turned out that it wasn't just Nadia and Dmitri who had plotted against Dennis. One by one, the other conspirators of the family came forward, apologized, and admitted to their crimes. Tavin never thought he'd see the one-sided power struggle shift so quickly. It had been years since Dmitri and his family had gained control of the family. He had been reduced to a figurehead. Everyone was on the same side as Dmitri for the past 10 years until now. "Mr. Adams, how should we deal with them?" Dennis asked. "This is your family affair. It's not right for us to intervene. You can do as you like." Fighting for power and control was common in upper-class families, and more often than not, it involved resorting to violence and murder. Stephen had seen too many of them to count. The LeBlanc family had almost ruined Dennis's life. Rather than having an outsider make a decision, it would be best for Dennis to wrap things up. Stephen believed that he would handle it well. News of Dion LeBlanc suppressing the LeBlanc family spread across Annapolis. A majority of the city heard that the previous successor who had been sent to prison 10 years ago had returned. Johann rushed to the study in a hurry to report to Terence. Dion LeBlanc from the LeBlanc family came back after being in prison for 10 years. He defeated Dmitri in one move. Terence couldn't quite believe it. The successor was taken down in one move? He must be capable. It seems like the rankings will have to be changed. You don't want to meet with someone as talented as Dion? That's for a later date. Even if Dion is skilled, there's still a huge gap between you and him. Our top priority is to arrange a meeting with the commander-in-chief. We need to bring him to the main branch as soon as possible. You're right. That's more important than anything else. While news of Dion LeBlanc suppressing the LeBlanc family spread across Annapolis, Stephen began to make preparations to deal with the Adams family. During his wedding with Kim, Johann had shown up unannounced and given him 3 wedding gifts: the memorial tablet, the urn, and the wreath. Stephen had kept them for the sake of returning them to Johann one day. "I've asked someone to deliver the 3 items here," Rosalind said. "They should arrive before you head to the Adams family." "Okay. Next, we should decide on when we should visit the Adams family." Aside from Stephen's reappearance, the duel between the commander-in-chief and General Kylan, and the return of Dion LeBlanc, a rumor was floating around the upper-class circles in Annapolis about the eldest son of the Phoenix family, Mansell Phoenix. He was married, and he was looking for a second wife. It was common for those in upper-class families to have multiple partners, but they would only be married to one person. There had never been anyone who was brazen enough to declare that they would marry someone else while remaining married to their first partner. But the Phoenix family was ranked second in the country, and Terrence's wife Laurel was a member. No one dared to talk back to Mansell and his questionable decisions. Amy knew her life was over when Mansell took a liking to her. It had been a while since she'd come to Annapolis, so she knew all about the crimes he'd committed against the women in the city. His father had used their influence to cover them up. Mansell's wife didn't have the courage to interrogate him or accuse him. When Mansell first saw Amy at a gathering, he decided right then and there to take her as his second wife. "Amy, Mansell's here." Vanessa pointed outside the dorm window at the several luxury cars parked below. All of them were sports cars with more than 10 million. Mansell was leaning against a Maserati. He was dressed in a suit and wearing a pair of sunglasses. His attendants in uniform lined up in a row in front of him and called out in the direction of Amy's dorm. "Miss Amy, Mr. Mansell is here to pick you up. Please come downstairs." Amy paced around the room, racking her brain for a solution. "Is there any way out of this?" Vanessa sighed. "Just accept your fate. You know what kind of person Mansell is. He has no concept of the law. None of the girls he likes have ever escaped his clutches. If you don't go downstairs now, they won't be so polite when they rush up here and barge into the room." Amy flopped on the bed in resignation. "Is my life going to be ruined like this? I haven't even met the man of my dreams yet." "Actually, there is a way out," Vanessa said. "Your brother-in-law's in Annapolis right now. Call him." Amy sat up with a start and grabbed her phone. "I almost forgot about that." When Amy attended Lionel's seminar, he'd given her Stephen's new phone number. She didn't think it would come in handy. Amy got straight to the point when Stephen picked up, not bothering with small talk. "Hello, Stephen. I'm in trouble. Can you come and help me out?" There was a bang, and the door to the dorm was pushed open. Mansell walked in. "Hey, who are you calling? I've been waiting for you downstairs." "Actually, never mind. I'm not here to investigate who you're talking to. I've organized a gathering, and you'll be accompanying me." "Can I not participate?" Amy asked, even though she already knew the answer. "I'll be officially announcing you as my second wife. You're the main character. You have to be there. I'll give you 5 minutes to change. I've already prepared your outfit." One of Mansell's attendants handed a dress to Amy. Stephen didn't have any time to say anything before Amy hung up in a panic. "Rosalind, Amy's in trouble. Track the call and locate her." Rosalind turned on her laptop and locked onto Amy's phone signal. "She's at Annapolis University, but she's leaving the vicinity as we speak. Keep tracking her location. I'll head out as soon as we figure out where they're going." 20 miles away from Annapolis was a club in the suburbs. Limited edition sports cars lined the entrance. The younger generation of the royal families and above were gathered inside. Mansell was the organizer, so they had to attend even if they didn't want to. Mansell hadn't arrived yet, so the others who were present started chatting amongst themselves. A lot had happened in Annapolis recently. First, the Addams family's illegitimate son, who had disappeared for more than half a year, had made a reappearance. He was even preparing to come to the city and challenge the Addams family. Second, the commander-in-chief was in Annapolis, and he had accepted General Kylan Gale's request for a duel. And third, the topic they were most interested in was what had happened yesterday. The former successor of the LeBlanc family, Dion LeBlanc, who had been in prison for the past 10 years, had confronted his family and overthrew the hierarchy after being released. He defeated Dimitri, who had firmly maintained his position as the top-ranking youth in the city for 10 years. "It's only been a few days, and a storm's already raging in the city," someone said. "The rankings changed overnight, and Tien, who used to be ranked second, has become a madman." As he spoke, he glanced at Tien, who was sitting in the corner. As someone who was ranked among the top youths in the city, Tien had to attend. While everyone was chatting, he kept to himself and sat there quietly, as if their discussion didn't concern him. The same person who'd just spoken turned to Derek, who was sitting next to him. "If I had to be honest, the former second place has gone crazy, and the former first place is useless. It's time for someone else to take first place, and that person is you, Derek." Derek made a show of dismissing the flattery. "There are many others who are more talented than me. They deserve first place. Don't just look at the rankings at the top. Those who are ranked at the bottom may not necessarily be as weak as you think they are. Take Dion LeBlanc, for example. He was in prison for 10 years, but he defeated Dimitri in one move. Dimitri's been at the top of the rankings for the past 10 years. How is he capable of that?" "Who knows? There's been a lot happening in the city lately," someone added. "The commander-in-chief has a duel with General Kylan, and the LeBlanc family's a mess. Even the Addams family has run into a problem. Their illegitimate son came back after disappearing for more than half a year and challenged them." "There has been a lot going on, but it's not true that the Addams family encountered a problem," Derek said. "Stephen's no match for them." "You're right," someone echoed. "He's not worth our attention." While they were looking down on Stephen, Tien and Celeste, who were sitting in the corner, shot them mocking looks. The door opened, and Mansell entered the club. Everyone stood up to greet him. He wasn't strong enough to defeat anyone here, but because he was a member of the Phoenix family, that made him Johan's relative. His status was higher than all of theirs combined. They had to treat him with respect. They noticed a beautiful woman in a dress accompanying Mansell. "Sorry for being late," Mansell said. He spoke casually like they were his friends, but none of them had the courage to joke around with him and tease him for his tardiness. Derek was the first to speak. "You're the star of the gathering today. Being the last to arrive is a given." His flattery wasn't too much or too little. It was just right. Mansell smiled in approval. Everyone else agreed. I asked you all to come today because Dion LeBlanc returned after 10 years in prison and took Dimitri in one move. This is worth discussing. But before that, I have an announcement to make. It sounds like you have good news, Derek said. You know me well, Derek. You guessed right. Mansell motioned for the woman next to him to come forward. I'd like to introduce you to Amy. She's a graduate student attending Annapolis University. She and I will be getting married soon. What about the other girls? Someone asked. Amy's different. I want to marry her and bring her home. Aren't you already married? Derek asked, confused. Mansell let out a sigh. You still don't understand what I mean. I have been married for many years, but who said I couldn't take on a second wife? Everyone was dumbfounded. This was unheard of. Many people from upper-class families had affairs outside, but no one had ever taken on a second marriage partner while being married to their first. Even the head of the Addams family, Terrence, was only married to Laurel. There was no second wife, or third wife for that matter. But since this was Mansell Phoenix, no one criticized him or tried to persuade him that it wasn't a good idea. The laws didn't exist to him, and the crimes he'd committed were too numerous to count. He had the support of both the Phoenix family and the Addams family. They helped him conceal his crimes, no matter how serious they were. In Annapolis, he could be considered a tyrant. Derek was the first to react. Why are you all just sitting there? It's a good thing to fall in love. Congratulations, Mansell. The rest of them followed suit. Mansell was satisfied with their reaction. With that out of the way, let's celebrate. Before anyone could do anything, a displeased voice rang out from the corner of the room. Don't you think you've gotten ahead of yourself? Mansell looked over. It was Tien, who had been sitting in the corner without a word. He'd stopped looking up to Tien after he failed to recover from his setbacks in Washington, D.C., and dropped to 20th place on the rankings. But even though Tien's status had fallen drastically, he was still on the rankings. Mansell couldn't dismiss him directly. What are you trying to say, Tien? Have you asked Amy for her opinion? I want to marry her. Isn't that enough? Why do I need her consent? Tien narrowed his eyes. Do you know who she is? Of course I do. Her name is Amy Cassidy. She's a graduate student in the medical department at Annapolis University. And she has an older sister named Kim Cassidy, who's the adoptive daughter of the head of the Cassidy family in the city. The reason Mansell wanted to take Amy as his wife was because of her affiliation with the Cassidy family. He couldn't fool around with her and risk outright antagonizing Urim. It would be a different story if they were married. There was nothing Urim could say or do because they would be a married couple. You know who she is, but you're still trying to force her into marrying you? Tien said. You're as ignorant and as full of yourself as always. You don't even know who you've provoked. Are you talking about the Cassidy family? If Urim himself was here, he would have to agree to our marriage. I'm not talking about them. Mansell scoffed. Aside from the Addams, Phoenix, and Cassidy families, who else is there? If you're trying to scare me, it's not working. I'm interested in Amy, and I will marry her. I'd like to see if there's anyone who will try to stop me. The moment these words left his mouth, the door flew open. Stephen strolled into the club with Rosalind behind him. What Tien said is right. There is someone you've provoked who you shouldn't have. Derek was astonished to see him waltzing into Mansell's gathering uninvited. Tien and Celeste exchanged a glance. The person they'd been looking forward to seeing was finally here. Who are you? Mansell asked, annoyed by the interruption. Do you know what the occasion is? Amy hurried over to Stephen's side. He's my brother-in-law. What happened, Amy? Actually, She trailed off. She didn't know how to tell Stephen about Mansell. It was kind of embarrassing. If you're Amy's brother-in-law, then you came at the right time. Help me inform her parents that I want to marry her and take her as my second wife. Tell them to come to Annapolis for the wedding. Your second wife? What gave you that idea? Have you been living under a rock? This isn't ancient times. If I want to marry her, then I will. And you've just disrupted our gathering. Do you even know who I am? Who are you? Stephen asked flatly, not interested in the slightest. Before Mansell could say anything, someone introduced him. The person standing in front of you is a member of the Phoenix family. He's won the favor of the head of the Adams family, Terrence Adams. Mansell held his head high at the grand introduction. Your identity is certainly impressive, Stephen said sarcastically. But if you want to marry her, shouldn't you ask for her opinion first? In this city, I don't need to ask for anyone's opinion. Stephen frowned. He understood why Amy had turned to him for help. With Mansell's background, no one in the city would risk getting on his bad side. Why are you so quiet all of a sudden? Are you afraid? I don't care who you are. I will be marrying Amy, whether you like it or not. Since you're so determined, then I'll declare something as well. No one can force Amy into a marriage, not even Terrence. Mansell gritted his teeth. No one in the city had ever talked back to him like this. Derek stepped in. Stephen, it's not smart to meddle in other people's business. He's from the Phoenix family, ranked second in the country. Mansell turned around. What did you just say? What was his name? That's Stephen Adams, Derek replied. Everyone in the room turned their attention to Stephen. Derek looked around at their stunned faces. You heard me correctly. He's the Adams family's illegitimate son, Stephen Adams, who abandoned his family. Besides Tien and Celeste, none of them had seen Stephen in person before, but his name was infamous among their circles. It was a well-known fact that when the deadline for his bet with the Adams family came around, he ran off and shoved the responsibility to his wife and his mother. He was a disgrace to men everywhere. That coward came to Annapolis? How shameless can he be? If I were him, I would have stayed in hiding for the rest of my life. How can someone be so thick-skinned? Negative comments about Stephen filled the room. They hadn't criticized Mansell when he announced that he would take on a second wife, but the second Stephen appeared, they directed all their indignation at him. You shouldn't have come here, Derek said. But considering this is your first offense against Mansell, if you're sensible and leave quietly, I bet he'll be generous and let this go. Am I right? Mansell nodded. I don't mind, but that will depend on him. Derek's words didn't just win his approval. Everyone in the room was moved. This is why everyone calls you a modest gentleman, someone complimented. He barged in here and interrupted our gathering, but you're still being lenient with him. Derek and Miss Kim are a perfect match. Derek was from an imperial family, and he was ranked third among the youths. He was well acquainted with Marcel, and Urim Cassidy had even chosen him to be Kim's marriage partner. It would only be a matter of time before he and Kim were married. I also want to leave, Stephen said with a smile. I'm not used to attending gatherings with stuck-up rich kids like you. But I won't be leaving alone. Amy is coming with me. Are you trying to ruin my reputation? Mansell spat. Soon, the entire city will know that I'm planning on marrying her. No one can leave without my permission. Two youths in the room jumped out of their seats and blocked the door. They were ranked in the top 10 with a talent for martial arts. Have you lost your mind? How dare you snatch Mansell's woman? You think you can offend him and leave unharmed? It won't be that easy. Stephen glanced at them. If I want to leave, no one in this room will be able to stop me. You talk as if you're someone strong, the youth with a muscular build said. If you want to leave, you'll have to get through me first. Stop wasting time, Mansell snapped. Take care of him. The two youths acknowledged his order and rushed at Stephen. Their movements were insanely fast to the others in the room, but they were painfully slow in Stephen's eyes. Amy, get behind me. Stephen spun around and sent them flying with a kick. They slammed into the wall and collapsed on the floor. The crowd was stunned. The Adams family's illegitimate son, who had disappeared for more than half a year, had taken down two youths ranked in the top 10 in a matter of seconds. The two of them were talented in martial arts. They weren't like Mansell, who fooled around on a daily basis. Their skills were real. Derek sucked in a breath as he reevaluated Stephen's strength. Mansell was also dumbfounded, but he came to his senses quickly. So, you were hiding your skills. Do you know who those two are? They're from imperial families, and they're ranked in the top 10. Derek stood up. This is a serious crime, Stephen. Even if you left the club, I don't think you'll be able to stay in Annapolis for much longer. The crowd expressed their agreement. Stephen had injured two people with powerful backgrounds. It was equivalent to offending two imperial families at the same time. Stephen shrugged. What's wrong with that? They came at me first. I was only defending myself. I suggest you let me and Amy leave without a fuss. Mansell's expression darkened. Don't tell me you want to beat me up like them. And if I do? Mansell stepped in front of Stephen. Then go ahead. I'm right here. This is your chance. There was no one in the city who didn't know his name. Whoever laid a hand on him would have their life cut short. Okay, if that's what you want. Without warning, Stephen kicked Mansell in the knee, forcing him to drop to the ground. Then, he broke his arm. It had happened in one smooth motion. Mansell didn't have a chance to react. Before he knew it, he was on the floor, groaning in pain. The oldest son of the Phoenix family, Stephen said, looking down at him. I've heard about you. You're fairly young, but you've committed countless crimes. How does it feel to be punished by the law for the first time? The crowd froze. They were too busy being stunned and didn't think to check on Mansell's injuries. Derek was in disbelief. Stephen, are you crazy? Mansell has the support of the Addams family. Not even God can save you now. He faced the crowd. Things have gotten to this point, so our only option is to ask the elders of our respective families to come forward. All of you have witnessed Stephen's lunacy firsthand. We are not enough to stop him. One of them snapped out of their shock and took out his phone. The rest followed his lead and pulled out their phones to inform their families. Should we make a run for it? Amy whispered. Stephen gave her a reassuring smile. It'll be fine. I'll take care of it. Rosalind pulled out a chair nearby. He took a seat, leaned back, and looked around the room. Call whoever you want. I'll deal with them all today. Seeing that everyone was making a call, Derek took out his own phone and went to the corner to call his family. Stephen was only the Addams family's illegitimate son, but if he caused a commotion here today, they would have to step in. His reappearance had already caused a storm in the city. Escalating the situation would involve not only the royal and imperial families, but also the Beaumont families. They would band together and get rid of Stephen for good. Then, he wouldn't have an opportunity to explain himself to Kim. This was Derek's ingenious plan. On the surface, he acted like a modest gentleman who rarely got involved in conflicts and didn't care for fame and fortune. But on the inside, he was scheming and manipulative. Tien's ranking had fallen drastically, and recently, Dimitri, who'd been in first place for the past 10 years, had been removed from his position by Dion. This was the perfect opportunity for him to take first place. As they finished making their calls, the city erupted in chaos. The royal and imperial families moved out, one after another. They all had the same destination, the club 20 miles away from the city. Half an hour later, the entrance to the club was surrounded by a motorcade of luxury cars. There were more than 100 of them. The leaders of the royal and imperial families had arrived, including the Naylor family, the Val family, and the Lindsay family. The only person missing was the head of the LeBlanc family. They had recently undergone a hierarchical restructuring. An elderly man walked briskly into the club while being escorted by the other family heads. He was the leader of the imperial families. He rarely made an appearance in public. Where's Mansell? Derek pointed at the limp form on the ground. Mansell had passed out after having his arm broken. The leader of the imperial families was furious. Who did this to Mansell? The heads of the families of the two youths who Stephen had beaten up before Mansell noticed their grandsons lying on the floor near the wall. They were also infuriated. Derek suppressed the urge to grin and put on a grave expression. There is no need to be so angry. The person who injured them is in the room. He pointed at Stephen, who was watching the spectacle from another table. It was him, Stephen Adams. The other youths joined in. He's the culprit. The family heads simultaneously looked over at Stephen. Stephen wasn't fazed by the attention. What they said is the truth. It was me. He met their gazes. Let me count. 1, 2, 3. There are more than 20 of you. I guess all the royal and imperial families are here. Well then, come on. The leader of the imperial families didn't respond to his provocation. Instead, he signaled to his 10 bodyguards to attack. Stephen stood up just as they charged him. He threw one punch after another, and in less than 30 seconds, they were on the ground. The leader of the imperial families shouted at the other family heads to attack together. They obliged and instructed their own bodyguards to take action. They rushed towards Stephen like a tidal wave. He deflected their blows with relative ease and sent them crashing against the wall. Everyone watched in bewilderment. The head of the Lindsay family and Celeste's father were the most surprised. Was this the same coward in the rumors? Was this really the disgrace of men everywhere? With his skill, he would be ranked among the top 10 youths in the city, the head of the Lindsay family said with a sigh. He might even be ranked on the combat sovereignty rankings. What a shame. Celeste's father knew why he was feeling regretful. If Celeste hadn't gone to find Stephen to tear up the arranged marriage contract, their family would have someone who was skilled enough to rank on the combat sovereignty rankings. Talent was sparse in their family. Stephen would have been the rain after a long drought. But their chance had passed. They could only look on with regret. Derek was dumbfounded. How is he so strong? He's from the Adams family, the leader of the imperial families explained. It's not surprising that he has some skill. They're ranked first in the country. Even their illegitimate son is extraordinary. The other family heads agreed with him. Stephen was this strong because of his bloodline. The possibility that he had achieved his current strength through his own capabilities never occurred to them. The theory of a noble and superior bloodline had been deeply rooted in upper-class families for a long time. From Stephen's display of strength, the family heads knew that none of them would be a good match for him. Even though he'd injured Mansell and 2 others, they would have to let it go. Mansell had come to his senses from the commotion. He staggered to his feet. Why did you all stop? Keep going! I'm telling you now, if you don't kill him today, I'll tell the Phoenix and Adams families that you failed to protect me. The responsibility for my injury will fall on you. The family heads weren't afraid of Mansell himself, but the consequences would be serious if he involved the Adams and Phoenix families. Even if the imperial families joined forces, they wouldn't be able to go against the top 2 ranked families in the country. Everyone looked at the head of the imperial families, silently asking for his opinion. He cleared his throat and declared, If we don't get rid of him today, a bleak future will be waiting for us. He might be strong, but we can't look past his crime of injuring the oldest son of the Phoenix family. And if we succeed, the Adams and Phoenix families will have to owe us a favor. I've already said this much. The decision is yours. There was no hesitation. The rest of the family heads supported him. They would fight Stephen with their lives on the line. If they didn't deal with him here and now, they would be punished by the Adams and Phoenix families. Whether it was them or Stephen, their lives were at risk either way, so they might as well give it their all for the slim chance of being rewarded by the Adams and Phoenix families. Tensions filled the air. Celeste had been quiet all this time. Watching them being so reckless and ignorant tested her patience. She couldn't stand it anymore. She slammed her hands on the table and stood up. Are you all out of your mind? Do you know who he is? Of course we do, the leader of the Imperial family said. He's the Addams family's illegitimate son. I think you're the one who's out of your mind. Why are you stopping us from disposing of a coward? He's not a coward. He's the commander-in-chief. For the past 6 months, he and his troops were fighting at the border with their lives on the line against Devil Hall's army. The family heads, who were ready to fight Stephen to the death, stood frozen in place. The youths were similarly shocked. Tien grinned from his corner. They had mocked him for not being able to defeat an illegitimate son, but they wouldn't be able to say anything like that anymore, not after knowing that his opponent had been the commander-in-chief. Derek's eyes were wide with horror. If that was true, then wasn't he competing with the commander-in-chief for his wife? The thought alone was terrifying. Tien stood up, walked over to Stephen, and greeted him respectfully. Celeste followed him and did the same. That was confirmation that Stephen really was the commander. Just as the family heads were preparing to give him their own polite greeting, Derek spoke up. Wait, why should we believe you? He knew that Tien and Celeste were telling the truth, but he couldn't accept it. It was like his final struggle against the inevitable. Tien glanced at him in annoyance. Why would I lie in front of the royal and imperial family leaders? You must be blind not to recognize his identity. When I was ranked second, why did I lose to Mr. Addams? The answer is because he's the commander-in-chief. If it weren't for Mr. Addams, I would have died a long time ago, Celeste added. The truth was undeniable. Derek collapsed in his chair. Even Mansell, who had acted arrogant since the moment he set foot in the club, felt his knees go weak. The head of the Lindsay family and Celeste's father looked at each other in understanding. They had been wondering why Tien and Celeste had changed so much after their trip to Washington, D.C. It was like they had become a different person. Only the commander-in-chief would be capable of that. The head of the Val family was relieved. I knew it. Tien wouldn't have lost for no reason. Even if all the youths on the rankings banded together, they would never be able to win against the commander. One of the family heads chimed in. When Tien and Celeste went to Washington, D.C., they said they met the commander-in-chief. It turns out he was Mr. Addams all along. That's not all, another family head said. Who else but the commander would make a bet with the Addams family? They're no match for him. Everything makes sense now, the third family head interrupted. Mr. Addams didn't run away. He went to the border to fight against Devil Hall. While he was risking his life on the battlefield, we criticized him for being a coward and a disgrace. We were truly blind. The fourth family head joined the discussion. When his child was born, he was at the border fighting for our country. I was one of the people who mocked him. I must have been blind, too. One by one, the family heads admitted their ignorance and chastised themselves. One by one, the family heads were admitting their ignorance. That's enough, Stephen interrupted. Did you come here just to admit your shortcomings? His voice snapped the family heads out of it. The leaders of the imperial families was the first to get on his knees and greet Stephen respectfully. Then it was the Lindsay family, followed by the Val and Naylor families. Soon, the royal and imperial family leaders and the youths were on their knees. Derek was the only one standing there in a daze. He was hung up on the fact that he had competed with the commander-in-chief for his wife, and he finally understood why Stephen had wanted Kim to come to Annapolis. The head of the Naylor family was alarmed when he saw that Derek stood out among the crowd. Derek, why are you still standing? He hissed. Hurry up and greet Mr. Addams. Derek came to his senses and dropped to his knees. I'm very sorry for making a move on your wife, Mr. Addams. If I knew who she was, I would never have agreed to go on a blind date with her. It's not that serious, Stephen said with a smile. If it weren't for you, it wouldn't have been that easy for the family to agree to Kim coming to Annapolis. Unnecessary complications would have come up. Consider that as you make up for your mistakes. We're even. He turned his attention to Mansell. A chill ran down Mansell's spine when Stephen's cold and penetrating gaze fell on him. He had two of the most powerful families in the country on his side, but he was nothing in front of the commander-in-chief. Mr. Adams, When he couldn't get the words out, Stephen interrupted. Have you realized your crimes? Just because you have the support of the Adams and Phoenix families doesn't mean you can run wild in the city and do whatever you want. The laws exist for a reason. If it were anyone else scolding Mansell like this, he would have beaten them to a pulp a long time ago. But this was the commander-in-chief. I was wrong, Mr. Adams. I won't make the mistake again. Apologize to Amy. Mansell looked up at her. Miss Amy, I shouldn't have forced you to marry me without your consent. Amy was still trying to wrap her head around the revelation that Stephen was the commander-in-chief. Thinking back, his unusually bold claims made sense. She should have seen this coming. It was satisfying to see Mansell act so humble in front of her, but he was a member of the Phoenix family, so Amy couldn't make a decision on her own. She turned to Stephen for his input. You'd better remember your promise, Stephen gestured to Amy and Rosalind. Let's go. As the three of them left the club, the heads of the royal and imperial families shouted their goodbyes. Then they held their breaths and waited. The minutes ticked by. The tension only left them when they were sure that the commander-in-chief was far away. It felt like they had spent an entire day in hell. The families gradually left the club one by one. The head of the imperial families arranged for a few of his people to carry Mansell back to the Phoenix family's residence. The head of the Phoenix family was furious when he saw his beloved grandson injured. Who did this? When Mansell didn't say anything, his parents tried to encourage him to talk. Mansell spent his days idling about, fooling around outside and tormenting others, but he was still the Phoenix family's absolute favorite. They treated him like a treasure. They wouldn't forgive anyone who harmed him. Mom, Dad, Grandpa, can you stop asking? Just pretend that this never happened, all right? The three of them exchanged confused glances. Was this the same grandson they all knew and loved? They were well aware of what Mansell did outside, but because he was their favorite, they turned a blind eye and helped him cover up his mess. Mansell had the backing of the top two Beaumont families in Annapolis. He had the means and the influence to do whatever he wanted because no one would retaliate. One time, someone who didn't know Mansell's background unintentionally offended him. The next day, Mansell brought a group of people with him and ruined that person's entire family. Now Mansell was injured, and he was asking them to pretend like nothing had happened. That couldn't have been any further from his personality. No, we can't do that, the head of the family said. Your arm is broken. We can't let the culprit get away. His parents agreed. We must bring that thug to justice. The three of them were filled with indignation and spoke righteously, ignoring the reason why Mansell had ended up like this in the first place. Mansell hurriedly tried to calm them down. I already told you, just forget about it. I'll take responsibility. Getting back at the commander-in-chief required an unimaginable amount of courage, which he didn't have, nor did he want to. The head of the family sighed. He couldn't understand why Mansell, who had always been arrogant and overbearing, had become so reserved. What are you so afraid of? Before he could continue, his phone rang. Seeing that it was Terrence who was calling, he quickly answered the call. Hello, Terrence? Dad, I just heard that Mansell was beaten up at the club in the suburbs. Is that true? If the Adams family already knew about this, the news must have spread throughout the city. Yes, Mansell was just carried back home. His arm is broken. Who did it? We're not sure yet. I was asking him before you called. Then how about this? I'll send Johan over. He'll take care of it. All right, I'll be waiting for him. The head of the Phoenix family ended the call and turned back to Mansell. Are you still not going to tell us who did this to you? The news has already spread to the Adams family. I bet the entire city knows about this by now. It's a disgrace to our family. Mansell refused to answer. Soon, Johan arrived with Laurel. She was worried about her nephew. Who would do something like this to a member of our family? Who did this? Johann asked. If you tell me their name, I'll head over and I'll break their arm, just like what they did to you. The entire city knew that Mansell and his cousin Johann were close. Injuring him was the same as looking down on Johann. Mansell sighed in exasperation. I can't tell you that. Can we just pretend like this never happened? No, we can't do that. We should make the culprit understand the consequences of laying a hand on a member of the Phoenix family. There's no point, Mansell insisted. In any case, I can't tell you no matter how much you try to force it out of me. Everyone looked at each other in confusion. Just what could have happened to him to make him so afraid? Mansell was insistent, so Johann could only give in. Okay, fine. But even if you don't tell me, with our family's influence, we can still find the culprit. News of Mansell's arm being broken continued to spread, and soon all of the upper-class families had heard about it. Everyone who was present had kept their mouths shut, leaving the city to guess the identity of the mystery culprit. They speculated that an influential big shot had come to Annapolis. Attacking a member of the Phoenix family as soon as they arrived was a provocation to all the Beaumont families. A single stone could make 1,000 ripples. Mansell was the topic of discussion during every meal among the upper class. This included the Cassidy family in Annapolis. Everyone was gathered to discuss the latest news. Urim was surprised when he heard about it. I didn't think anyone would have the courage to attack Mansell. Keene nodded. What's even more strange is that he's refusing to name the culprit. Usually he would have rallied a group and killed whoever did this to him by now. We should be careful, Urim said. We're also a Beaumont family. If the problem escalates, we'll be forced to get involved. Is this the same Mansell who targeted me? Kim asked. Yeah, it was him, Keene said. Kim recalled the incident a while back. Back then, he would have taken advantage of me if I didn't run into you two. Who knew karma would come so soon? The heavens are always watching, Urim said. For the time being, we'll let the Phoenix family handle it. By the way, Kim, you've been here for a few days now. Is Stephen here yet? I don't know. He hasn't contacted me. Urim frowned. Didn't he tell you to come here so he could explain himself? It's already been several days, but there's no word from him. In my opinion, he's trying to fool us again, Keene said. He has a track record. Who's to say he's not planning to deceive Kim a second time? He's nothing but scum, Urim spat. The Cassidy family's butler hurried into the room. Mr. Derek from the Naylor family is here. Urim's anger dissipated. Invite him in. He was pleased with the partner he'd chosen for Kim. Recently, Dimitri and Tien, who'd been ranked first and second respectively, had fallen from the top. Derek was ranked third, but theoretically he was actually first. However, he was humble and didn't fight for the position. Like the rumors, Derek was a true modest gentleman. Urim was also impressed when he heard that Derek had been open-minded about Kim's situation. He definitely had a bright future ahead of him. To his surprise, when Derek walked in, he didn't look anything like someone who deserved first place, or even third place. He was like a deflated balloon, devoid of energy and ambition. He looked weak and fragile, as if he were about to keel over. Derek, are you sick? Keene asked hesitantly. No, I came to ask your permission to cancel the engagement between me and Miss Kim. Why do you say that? Urim asked, confused by his sudden change in attitude. Derek had been enthusiastic about the idea when he first brought it up. Be honest, Keene said. Did your parents disagree? Is it because they think Kim isn't a suitable partner because she has a child? No, that's not what happened. Please don't misunderstand. This has nothing to do with my family. My parents were thrilled with Miss Kim. Then why are you asking to cancel the engagement? Derek broke out in a cold sweat when he thought about Stephen being the commander-in-chief. Well, it's just, I don't think I deserve her. Urim slammed his fist on the table. Are you taking us for fools? As the head of the Cassidy family, he could tell that there was more to the story. Derek was afraid of something or someone, but he was ranked third, and he was from an imperial family. Who would be capable of threatening him? Derek was on the verge of tears. Can you stop asking me for a reason? I really can't be engaged to Miss Kim. Uram's expression relaxed. Derek, what are you afraid of? You know I approve of you being my son-in-law. If you're in trouble, just say the word. I'll help you. As the head of the family ranked third in the country, Uram was quite capable. Although they were somewhat lacking compared to the Addams family, he was confident that they weren't inferior in any way to the Phoenix family. Derek was anxious to move on from this topic. Please don't ask any more. It's a problem with me, not Miss Kim. I can see that it is indeed a problem with you, Uram said coldly. Are you planning to fight with me to the end? I'm sorry, Mr. Uram. I've let you down. But even if you kill me, the engagement has to be canceled. Derek, are you determined to offend me and my family? Don't think I won't do anything about this just because I think highly of you. I could kill you right now. Uram was so angry that he walked over to the sword rack and pulled out his treasured sword. He aimed the blade at Derek's neck. If this can be resolved with me dying, then my death will be worth it, Derek said. Even if he had 9 lives, he would never have the courage to go against the commander-in-chief. Uram was even angrier when he was so willing to give up his life. He threw the sword on the floor. Get out of here. Keen rushed to mediate the situation. An engagement can be canceled, but agreement from both parties is required. You'll have to ask Kim for her opinion. Kim, what do you think? There's no point in continuing with the engagement if he doesn't want it, Kim said. Derek was relieved to hear that. Uram knew that Keen was giving Derek a way out, but he didn't comment on it. If that's what Kim thinks, then we'll cancel the engagement. Derek thanked him profusely. Uram waved him away. Get out of here. I don't want to see you again. I'll take my leave. Derek hurried to the door. Before he could leave, Uram called out to him. This isn't over. We'll settle the score after I find out what happened. Derek didn't say anything and walked out of the house. Just when I thought I'd seen it all, Uram said. Mansell was attacked, but he refused to take action. Derek came in here all mysterious and demanded the engagement be canceled. All I can say is these are troubling times. Do you think Stephen used some kind of shady method to scare Derek? Keen asked. That's not possible. Derek is ranked third. But with Dimitri and Tien out of the picture, he's technically in first place. Stephen's not capable of scaring him to that extent. Pay attention to the visitors who came to the city recently. Find out what's going on.